Hey, what is up? Thanks for checking out our second ProRevenge post. Grandpa is not to be messed up. Otherwise you might end up in a stinky situation. By I major in Magic 3. Alright, so this is my first post. Please be forgiving. For backstory, this story isn't mine. It's my grandpa's. Since he died before I was born, this has just been one of those family stories that I've heard since I was a little girl. My family has a lot of those, which I may tell if I find the willpower to do so. But it may not be 100% what happened, but the main points where a bully got covered in poo-pah. My grandpa grew up in rural Iowa. I'm not gonna say where exactly, but Iowa is basically all cornfields anyway, so ya probably got a mental image in your head already. He was always a stand-up guy, and despite this happening over 70 years ago at this point, you can still hear people speak very highly of the Boy Scout of a man that my grandpa was. I sincerely wish I knew him. At this point my grandpa was in his junior year of high school, and despite being well loved in his community, he had his bully. Everyone has that one bully. His bully though just seemed to be a dick to everyone. Teachers, parents, kids. Hell, there was even a small town cop fresh to the force who got bullied at one point, which would probably go under entitled people if I make another post about when I ended up meeting his shithead. No one seemed to stand up to this stupid little high schooler that thought he knew everything. It got to the point where he'd go out of his way to brag about it to people. This did not set right with my grandpa, but he didn't really know how to stand up to him without making things worse when it came to how he was being bullied. But, one day, mistakes were made. My grandpa was getting a pop at a gas station with his friends, and this particular gas station had a restaurant attached, since it was a good spot for people to pass through, on road trips or for a truck stop. And in the restaurant was the bully laughing loudly with his little weasel Y friends. My grandpa listened, just sipping his drink, and heard that they were going to pull a prank on an elderly woman that owned a farmhouse nearby. This woman's house wasn't in town, since her family had built that house long ago and worked the land around it. She was widowed, her children had moved away, and she hired people to help her maintain the place. Despite her age, I've been told that she was still a spitfire and insisted on doing a lot of the farming herself. The main issue with her health was heavy lifting. Anyway, back to the supposed prank. This woman didn't have indoor plumbing, which meant that she got water from a spigot near her house, and that she had an outhouse instead of a normal bathroom that we had today. For those of you that aren't entirely aware of how Iowa farm outhouses work, it's basically a big pit in the ground that someone digs, and then they stick a wooden shack on top of it. The shack then has a seat with a hole in it for a person to relieve themselves in. The bullies were going to wait until the dead of night so that they could tip the outhouse over. My grandpa was furious when he heard this. He had been hired before by her for summer work and knew that she was a strict but kind woman that didn't deserve to be treated like that. Because when your only outhouse is tipped over, and ya gotta go, there's no way you're gonna be able to lift it, and there's no way to safely crouch next to the hole without falling in. So my grandpa did the right thing and immediately went with his friends to tell the old lady what was being planned. They expected her to be furious when they told her the story, but instead she sipped her coffee and gave them a chilling smile. Let them, but we'll have a surprise for them. And she let them in on a plan to make sure that things wouldn't go as far as the bullies had planned. That night, my grandpa and his friends, telling their parents that they were at one another's houses to hang out, all gathered at the old woman's house, munching on some cookies and pumpkin bread. My grandpa got the recipe off her, and it's an amazing recipe that my family uses to this day, and waited. At around 11 o'clock, they heard disgusted screams from the direction of the outhouse. You see, the way that the yard was set up, was so that there was only one way to get into the yard and still have enough room to take a running start to tip the outhouse over. My grandpa and his friends didn't tip the outhouse over, but they did move it over about 5 feet, and lightly covered the now exposed hole in excess corn stalks from the harvest. The screams were from my grandpa's bully being waist deep in human excrement. The bully's friends were frozen in place by the gate they came in, and the old woman immediately turned on the lights and started yelling that if they didn't get off her property that minute, that she was going to call the police. My grandpa and his friends waited inside and heard the whole thing, laughing when they heard the pitiful cries from the shit pit and the running of feet from the co-conspirators. Wouldn't you know it, he couldn't get out himself, and since he wasn't getting off her property, she called the police. My grandpa and his friends watched from a window as the poop fiend was dragged out of his rancid prison and made to go to the police station to explain just what he was doing. He wasn't an adult, so he wasn't charged, from what I was told, but word got out around school and his last 2 years of high school were absolute shit. No one knew it was Grandpa and the old lady never told a soul. Thank you, old lady. May you rest in peace, you wonderful woman. Thanks for watching. We are posting new content daily. Please like and subscribe.